This is Michael Orrell of MobileBurn.com, and this is the European version of the HTC One X. It's the very first smartphone on the market to feature a quad-core processor. The AT&T version for the US will be using a dual-core processor, but will also support LTE data. So here's the One X in a rather cool, all paper-based box. So pop it open here. There's the device, nice and thin. Turn it on. There it goes. And take a look at the contents. Here is a little metal device to replace a paper clip for removing the micro SIM tray. Contact information for warranty stuff, safety regulatory things. Here is the very cool looking white wall adapter and the matching white USB cable that goes with it for charging the One X, and a pair of stereo earbud headphones as well. Rather plain looking. Microphone and remote button here. And that's everything in the box. So this is the HTC One X. It's a very beautiful device. Solid unibody polycarbonate constructions, all one piece. Very slick looking indeed. And of course we've got a 4.7-inch display. It's a Super LCD 2 display, really nice and sharp, 720p HD resolution, so that's 720 pixels by 1280, works out to about 312 points per inch, retina quality they would say. Corning Gorilla Glass on the front, actually has beveled edges as well, so it feels really nice when your thumb's swiping across it. HTC says the device is about 8.9 millimeters thick. My calipers show it to be a little thicker than that, 9.2. Likewise, HTC reports 130 grams weight, but 134 seems to be actually where it comes in. On the left-hand edge, you might be able to see we've got a gloss coating here. It's glossed along the edges of the polycarbonate body, and it's matte on the back. It's a really nice effect. HTC said it was quite difficult to do. Micro USB port here on the left for data power, and also for using an MHL adapter for HDMI output. It's the rear of the device, speaker port down here. This is the 8 megapixel camera with the LED flash. Notice the Beats Audio logo. Up top, 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. There's a secondary microphone pinhole. It's the micro SIM card tray. You need to use a little device or a paper clip or something like that to pop the tray out. Power button up top. On the right hand edge is the volume control, and down bottom not much more than the microphone pinhole here. The battery is not user accessible, 1800 milliamp hours. There's no micro SD memory card slot or anything like that, although the device has 32 gig of internal storage. Now, of course, one of the big selling features of this device above and beyond the display is the fact that it runs NVIDIA's Tegra 3 quad-core processor. Actually has 5 cores. It has 4 main cores that can run at up to 1.5 gigahertz. Then it has a smaller low-power companion core for actually most of the tasks that the phone does. Idling most of the time, so saves power. 1 gig of RAM backing up the processor, so your application should run pretty speedily. In terms of connectivity, naturally we have Wi-Fi on this device. You can see I'm connected right now. I'm actually using AT&T's network. This is the EU version of the device though, the quad-core version, so while it supports AT&T's network, it is definitely not tuned for it, and I've had some issues with AT&T's network on the device so far. But anyway, back to connectivity options. In addition to the Wi-Fi 802.11a, b, g, and n support, also has NFC support for Android Beam. And you'll find that there's DLNA support as well, and you can actually get to the application with a neat 3-finger drag that'll automatically pull up the MediaLink application for streaming to DLNA compatible devices. And as you can see, there's also Wi-Fi direct support. In terms of bands, this device supports 21 megabits per second HSPA download speeds on the 850, 900, 1900, and 2100 megahertz bands. The One X is the first HTC product on the market to run HTC Sense 4, so you can see things are a little bit different in terms of the user interface, and partly that has to do with the fact that it's integrated into Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich, which changes things around a bit. As such, you'll notice we only have 3 buttons across the bottom of the display. That's back, home, and the task switcher. And if I activate the task switcher, you'll notice it's a little bit different than what we see in stock Android 4 devices or Android Honeycomb. You can still swipe away applications to get them out of the list, but while it's quite cool looking, it's not really as practical as the list that pops up on stock Android devices, or even HTC's own HTC Vivid for AT&T, which runs Android 4.0 but with Sense 3.6. At the top of the device, you see the speaker grill, and there's actually a hidden LED indicator in there. It shows when you're charging and things like that, and the 1.3 megapixel forward-facing camera, which can actually record 720p video, HD video, which is really cool. There's no focusing support though. So let's poke around HTC Sense 4 for a moment. Multi-touch support for the home screens. You can also just hit the home button when you're already at the main home screen, which is denoted by the little house icon. Maximum of 7 home screen panels, but you do have the ability to rearrange them or delete them if you wanted fewer. HTC, of course, supplies a number of very nice home screen widgets. In Sense 4, you'll notice that it diverts from HTC's recent Sense 3.5 and 3.6 look in terms of there's no shortcuts here. Everything is much cleaner in the notification area. This is probably the primary way of getting into settings though, because you no longer have a menu button to access from the bottom of the device. Let's go into the main menu. HTC has also dropped the vertical scrolling list and gone with the horizontally scrolling list that you see in stock Android 4.0 and Honeycomb as well. Search button there for searching through your apps, links to the Play Store, and the menu button. Tabs down at the bottom, so you can go to your most frequently used applications or just see the ones that you've downloaded. And I'll show you some of the interesting things you can do with tabs in the email application. So let's jump into email, which I have down here at the bottom. But before I do that, I'm going to show you that you can reconfigure the icons that are on the bottom of the device and put whatever you like in there. You can even create folders just by dragging one item on top of the other, and now there's a folder down here at the bottom. So let's jump into the application. Right now I'm looking at a combined inbox. You can see I've got 3 different accounts configured there. Color coded, so you can see which message is coming from which email account. Tabs along the bottom. Unread view, for example. Now I mentioned the tabs before, and if I long press on one, if I can pull it off, you can see that I can actually rearrange them, change which ones are showing, add and remove. But there's a bit of a disconnect here. You'll notice that when I go down here, I cannot scroll across to get to the last one. I actually have to tap on a different one and then tap again to get there. Now, of course, I want to get back to the main one. I have to tap multiple times to scroll it because it, it just does not scroll with your finger. So I'm going to jump into one of the specific accounts here. I guess the primary AIM account. So we're in the full view. Have an unread view as well. I'm going to go into attached so I can see the ones with attachments. Here's some formatted text, and you see we have a document attached. Downloaded it. Polaris Office is pre-installed, so you have a full read-write access to Microsoft Office documents. There's also a PDF viewer. I'll show you that a little bit later. Messages support multi-touch. You see It reflows the text. Hit reply, and I'll show you the keyboard. This is the HTC Sense keyboard. Notice how large it is and the buttons across the bottom. The arrow keys are not always there though. It kind of depends on the application. It's not a user configurable option that I can find. Keyboard works well though, otherwise. A little difficult for me to do this from behind a camera. But I've had no issues with the keyboard at all. Hit the send button. You might have also noticed in the menu that it said collapse. That's because it supports a threaded view of the messages. You can see here's two messages here. The original message and then the most recent reply that come in. And there's the collapse function right there. The inbox and everything naturally works in landscape orientation as well. I'm going to jump into settings though so you can see some of the options you have for configuring the account. It's set to Smart Sync right now, which is basically push. Then you can designate how often you want the account to be updated otherwise. I do like that you can configure a peak time and then tell whether or not to do anything. You know, I could say push all the time, or I could say don't sync at all, only manually during off-peak hours, which is really cool. You also have some flexibility in terms of the number of messages pulled down. You can say by number of emails, or you can say, you know, only the last 30 days worth, for example. Notice one of the HTC Sense 4 features. It's the stretching when you get to the bottom of the list. You also have options for setting font sizes and things like that, and configuring what you see in the inbox view. So if we jump out here, we should get a much larger view. And because of the nice assortment of widgets that HTC includes, you'll have good access to your email, text messaging, other things like that from HTC's lovely widgets. Speaking of lovely, this is a very cool looking photo gallery widget. Quite fond of it. Here's the messaging widget. Now this is a test device, so I don't have a lot of text messages here from multiple people, but you would see a bunch of these stacked if I did. Here's the text message itself. We can get into the full view of the messaging thread right here. And I'll show you what the keyboard looks like in landscape mode, since I didn't do that before. Large keys, thanks in part to the 4.7-inch display. And again, you can see the nice threaded view. Let's take a look at some of the things you can do to customize Sense 4. I'm going to long press on the display, and it's going to pull up the widget manager. HTC has done a much better job than Google in terms of organizing the way widgets are accessed. Stock Android 4 only allows you to go through a really long list of widgets just like this. HTC gives you a more condensed view, so I can get to just the ones I'm interested in, say the Gmail widget, or let's say, I think email is probably more interesting, so say mail. You can see we've got a couple of different styles to choose from. I will place this one here. Notice the screens that were red because they were not accessible. I'm going to say use all accounts for a combined view. And there we have the nice view of the inbox. A long press on it and resize it. You can only resize it down to so far though. You see it goes red around the border lines when I try to pull it in too tightly. But quite flexible. Also have quick access to all your applications for adding shortcuts and some other dedicated shortcuts, such as going to a specific Gmail label in the Gmail application.